So welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about Doctor Strange and Iron Man Season 1. I'm really excited to get into these. I'm going to try to keep it 30 minutes or less. But yeah, so let's get into it. So going off our usual template of stuff. So Doctor Strange, overall I thought it was really enjoyable. I thought it was a great story, first of all, and then second of all, I thought this one had great character development. So this one is also very similar to its MCU movie. Although at the time of Doctor Strange's release, I'm not sure if this was written or not, because this is written pre-2013, and I'm pretty sure Doctor Strange came out after that. So if it does bear similarities to the movie must have drawn inspiration from this. Overall, like I said, I really enjoyed the story and the character development. I think the character development is something that the MCU version of Doctor Strange is sorely missing, and we'll get into why I think that in a little bit. I gotta say though, I wasn't a fan of the art. I know some people would think Tom Fowler's art, who illustrated Season 1 of the Hulk, would seem a little messy, but to me this was a little too messy, or it was more messy than Tom Fowler's typical art. So I wasn't a huge fan of the art. So moving on, it was written by Greg Pak and drawn by Emily Rios. So the story starts off very similar to the movie in terms of like we're introduced to the Doctor. Okay, and this one actually starts off a little bit different. So we're introduced to him already having discovered the mountain, and he's making his climb up. And it's implied kind of like already that he doesn't have much use of his hands. He straight up tells the Ancient One, like, I'm here because I heard you could heal my hands. And the Ancient One just kind of laughs at him. He's like, hey, you know, if you want magic, if you want me to actually help you, then you need to study with me because I can't just do it for you. And then that's when we're given kind of like the speed treatment on Doctor Strange when he goes up to his room. We're not shown explicitly the accident. We're just shown that he's a cocky doctor and some kind of accident crippled him. I believe it's right here, it's the car accident, but they don't spend much time on it. Like, I believe it's like the first 15, if not 20 minutes of the movie is just him before he even makes the climb up to the mountain. So quickly, super quickly, we're introduced to Mordo as the bad guy. Mordo is already trying to like torture the Ancient One and all this other stuff and just being like super evil. And so Doctor Strange, he tells Doctor Strange to leave him, but Doctor Strange instead rushes out there and tries to help the Ancient One. Except Mordo stops him, kind of casts like don't talk spell on him, and enchants him. So basically he can't talk about what he saw. So the Ancient One doesn't know that it was Mordo using the powers or forces of Dormammu to try and like kill him or whatever. So Doctor Strange tries to admit what's going on. He can't because of the spell from Mordo, and the Ancient One, he basically tells the Ancient One like, hey, I'll stay and study. And the Ancient One's like, hey, cool, so you're gonna help me fight Mordo? And he's like, wait, how did you know? And the Ancient One's like, yeah, I know things. Basically, he knew that Mordo was gonna betray him. So what ends up so moving forward, it skips about 2 months, and Doctor Strange hasn't made any progress whatsoever. It's very similar to the movie where he quickly understands and learns the spells and incantations and things like that, but he has no control over it. He can't summon it, he can't do anything with it. The forces of Vishanti are outside of his control. He can't do any kind of magic whatsoever, and he's just cheesed about it. He's like, Ancient One, what the heck is going on? And so, very similar to the movie, the Ancient One just kind of pushes him through a portal and leaves him on some random mountain. However, instead of teleporting himself back, he ends up in his like this inn, and he's studying from his book, and the Wong shows up. Wong in this iteration of Doctor Strange is a martial artist, very strong martial artist, who also can't use the forces of Vishanti. He can't use magic. So basically this book is about Doctor Strange and Wong's journey to becoming proficient with magic, essentially. So right away, because Doctor Strange was studying the book and says Dormammu out loud, Wong attacks him. But their fight is broken up when things that, the Ancient One shows up and he's like, hey, morons, stop fighting. I need you two to work together. And then while they're still talking, this lady shows up being chased by all these crazy like ancient spirits and stuff. And this is kind of where I think the art is too sloppy, is with the magic stuff. So it almost looks like, you can tell they're going for some kind of shape, but it's almost like you can't fully see it. Like it's hard to like capture the full image of what she's trying to do, like, especially over here. Like you can tell it's the head of a bird, but the rest of it is just kind of like a red lump with holes in it, and it's just kind of funky. So Wong charges straight in to go and just like punch these birds and stuff like that, and Doctor Strange is like, "Hey, we're not magicians. We can't do this." End up with the female that's being chased, and Wong dispatches the birds with his martial arts. So the reason she was being chased is because she has this map. Now, what this map is it's a map to the 3 rings. Now, what the 3 rings are, as it's explained, is essentially the locations or the rings. To kind of talk about it here, I believe. The map is to lead them to the Rings of Vishanti, which, if you hold all 3, would give you control over the 3. I believe they're called like the Vishanti gods or something like that. It would basically give you full control over them, which gives you like crazy, stupid magic powers. And so the Ancient One blesses this chick and is like, "Hey, travel with them and go find the rings and make sure they don't fall into the forces of evil." And they're pretty much like, "Yeah, so we either got to find them and destroy them or figure out something to do with them." So after blessing them and kind of sending them on their way to go find the rings, Mordo attacks again, the Ancient One, and see, like you can tell it's supposed to be like a face or something, and it's just not. I don't care for the style. It's just there's too many lines and it's not a clear enough picture. Here's a little bit of team building, more of a relationship building with Wong, trying to teach Doctor Strange how to fight a little bit, but at this point, obviously Strange's hands are still jacked up. He's no kind of magic to heal himself or make his hands more usable or anything like that. So they end up going to Washington because that's where the first ring is. And they find that it's in the hands of the mayor, some kind of politician. And basically she's trying to swindle him, and he's kind of a sleazebag. He's trying to get her to do stuff. So Wong tries to sneak up on him. He ends up slipping on an apple. So it's implied right away that the ring just makes you lucky. This particular one makes you lucky, things to fall into your favor. It's kind of implied that over like just how sleazy the dude is, how sleazy of a person he is, how he's had like his position of control and things like that. So Doctor Strange, being as famous as he is in America, because he's a world-renowned surgeon and whatnot, kind of pulls a fast one on him. Taking a look at his hands, but he tells him he's got to remove the ring. And then at this point, basically as soon as the ring comes off, the dude gets hit with all the bad luck. He's hitting himself on tables, he's tripping over himself, spilling drinks, and all this kind of crazy stuff. But instead of keeping the ring, he gives it to, I forget her name, but the female that they're traveling with. And they're quickly attacked by the Mordo and the forces of evil. And, bad news. So she gives the ring over to Strange, she gives the ring to Strange, and Strange uses the ring to call in the Vishanti. And again, the art is really sloppy in my opinion. So you can tell this is supposed to be a tiger, it's supposed to be a female, and it's supposed to be that almost looks like Mordo if you ask me, honestly. Basically, they show up and just incinerate. The magic on magic panels are just really, I'm just not a fan of them. I don't think they look very good, and it's hard to tell what's going on. But basically, the Vishanti destroy them, and they're still here. And so, Doctor Strange is basically forced to use the ring to send them off to be on their own. And at this point, we're shown that the rings can only be carried by those that are worthy, as it starts to burn Doctor Strange. So he gives it to Wong, and Wong is also burned. So the female, I can't remember her name, ends up being the permanent carrier of the ring, because she's the only one that has the divine blessing from the Ancient One, and also isn't going to misuse the powers of the ring. So from here, they go to Cairo, which is where the second ring is supposed to be. And we're quickly shown that this guy just performs miracles. Medical miracles, as he operates on 2 people at the same time and saves both of their lives, which is insane. So from here, we see the blue kind of astral animal or whatever is a spy, kind of trying to keep tabs on them. And Doctor Strange sees that this guy is not like the other guy. He's using this ring for good. He's trying to do what he can to bring to make people's lives better and things like that. So he says he found it during in the Himalayas, whereas the previous guy, the politician, his was a family heirloom passed down from like person to person for generations. So this guy, he found the ring when he was looking for an old monk site. He dropped it. So he was like looking for something out in the mountains, and he found the ring. And like I said, it gives him, I don't know what you would say, like skills or proficiency of some kind, but basically it allows him to save other people's lives by through his surgical talents. And so this massive swarm, again, I think it's so sloppy because nothing is very distinct. But this swarm of just evil, like astral animals or something is coming after them. So they got to take off and run for it. And they all get knocked off this bridge and into like a river of some sort. And there's a little bit of a joke about how Wong bought these, they're supposed to be like talismans or whatever to protect them from evil. He bought them off some dude in Bangkok, and they work like for 45 seconds is what she says, even though the shaman said they worked for 2 hours. So there's a joke about knockoff magic stuff there. And then so they get rescued, or they are able to get out of the water, and they pull the ring off the guy, and he's like, oh no, my ring's missing. And so Wong took the ring, obviously, and he doesn't think that they should give it back because saving the world is greater than this dude saving tons of people in Cairo. So it's kind of like one of those moral things. But Doctor Strange doesn't want to leave, so he asks them how much time they have before they have to go to the next location. And he just teams up with this surgeon to like save as many people as they can between the two of them. So that's really cool, and I think that's a really awesome character trait that Doctor Strange develops. He sees the good that this guy is doing with the ring and the magic, and he decides to just stay and help this guy because he knows like this, we need to do good in the world and we need to continue this. And so he, after putting in hours, I think it was 6 hours that they were there for before they had to go to the next one. Yep, it was about 6 hours. And so this whole time he's doing surgery, so he racks out on the trip to the next place. So they're on their way to London. And so this is one of those panels where it's like, okay, the evil inside, or like the non-worthiness of Doctor Strange is kind of gnawing at him. He wants to take those rings and just do whatever he wants and take all the power for himself. The map reveals a location that they need to go to, but when they go, they get swarmed by like, they just possess sheep or something. I don't know, it's really weird. And they've got to work together. So Wong has like the spiritual aspect of like calling on the forces of Vishanti, like in terms of like the belief and such, but Doctor Strange has like memorized all the incantations and stuff like that, so they have to work together to combine their forces to be able to use magic and banish all these sheep away, so that basically blast Mordo away. And then so we go back to Tibet, where Mordo is still torturing the Ancient One and stuff. So we go to the British Museum, where there's all these artifacts, and it's implied that every religion is real, and all these artifacts are just dormant because nobody believes in those gods anymore. And to keep, so they team up and they try to do their best to sense out where the magical item is, the magical ring that they're looking for, the third ring of Vishanti. And this lady is revealed, and basically what this lady thinks she's doing is she's feeding people to basically the magic energies in the museum, and she thinks that's how she's keeping them at bay, instead of using the belief system that lack of belief is what's keeping these spirits basically asleep. And so what they end up doing is Doctor Strange calls on them by admitting his belief and saying he needs their help to defeat this lady. And so here on the left side, left, right, whatever, we see Athena answers the call of Doctor Strange, and she's like, okay, what do you need? This is interesting. And so she goes out there and gives the female that they've been traveling with the opportunity to kind of pull the ring off. And this whole time, this woman has been invisible because of the ring, and now everybody can see her, and she just starts flipping out because it's another one of those family things where every generation of their family has been like a custodian of this museum to keep the gods at bay. So she's no longer can be the host because the rings start burning her too. And then Mordo shows up. And he's like, hey, you got all the rings, you did all the dirty work, I'll take those now. And essentially, Doctor Strange doesn't want to use the rings. He's like, no, this is a bad idea. I can't pick them up because they're still burning me. And then this is it's implied here that, or it's basically straight up stated, Doctor Strange says Mordo's scared of them. That's why he's holding back his magic. So Doctor Strange pulls out some fancy moves that Wong taught him, but Wong decides to go extreme, and he just goes for the rings. So with the 3 rings, Wong kind of takes on this astral form, almost like a cosmic-y kind of look to him. Again, the art gets really sloppy with all these magic interactions, and I'm not a huge fan. But basically, once he takes those rings, Mordo calls upon Dormammu, and Dormammu gives Mordo the power to control Wong. So now Wong turns on them with the powers of the full Vishanti, and Doctor Strange is like, oh no! And the Ancient One is like, the Ancient One's spell on the female kicks in, and they're protected from him for a short time, and Doctor Strange has to get it together to be able to call upon his own belief in order to use magic powers. And that's what happens. Doctor Strange gets himself right, gets his mind right, and then he goes out there and gives Mordo the work. Straight up fisticuffs. He starts beating the crap out of him. It's pretty cool. And Dormammu gets so upset with him. Mordo tries to command Dormammu to kill Strange, and instead Mordo just Dormammu takes Mordo. He's like, nope, you're being an idiot, you're done. And so this is when Doctor Strange is able to go over to Wong and take the rings back. And instead of using the rings to bring back his life of fame and fortune, what he decides to do is he offers them up to the Vishanti, and the Vishanti take the rings as like an offering, you know. And so in the last couple panels, we're shown, just pay attention to this side of the, basically Doctor Strange continues his magics and becomes the Sorcerer Supreme as he's known to be, and Wong is his helper, martial artist, and the female sticks around with the Ancient One, and they kind of go back to Tibet and, like I said, continue their magics. So I really liked it, really liked it. I thought this was a better story, and this depicted Doctor Strange better than the MCU does. The MCU, so we're introduced to him as the cocky, you know, famous surgeon and stuff like that, turning down people because they don't got enough money to pay him and whatnot. But the thing we never really see is character development. I mean, if you think about it, he beats the villain Dormammu at the end of the movie out of his own pride, because he figures out how to defeat him with the time loop instead of, you know, whatever. Excuse me. We never see him get over his pride or any of the huge character flaws that he has as a person, or his arrogance. We never see that. As a matter of fact, the entire movie, those attributes stay with him. So I think this did a better job of doing good character development for the character. And it, like I said, it just depicted it a little better. The art could have been better. I just wasn't a fan of how sloppy the magic parts were. But overall, like I said, that did not at all hinder my enjoyment of the book. I really liked it. So just going over my notes really quick, make sure I didn't miss anything. Greg Pak sounds like a familiar writer. I can't put my finger on where I know him from. But I know for sure, I can't say that. I think I've heard his name before. I think I've heard him somewhere in the comic universe before. Mordo, yeah, it's crazy to me how fast they say, hey, Mordo's the bad guy, and then they just kind of send Doctor Strange on his journey, but I'm totally okay with it. For the course of the journey, yep, because they're not worthy. Story is very good, character dev, disappointed in the art, covered all that, very good story. Yeah, alright, so we're jumping over to Iron Man now. Iron Man, this one is incredibly similar to the MCU movie. Again, this one came out after the MCU movie came out in 2008. So overall, very similar to Doctor Strange, where the MCU origin is pretty much the same, and the very even this one is even more similar, whereas the story is almost verbatim. There's like a few changes here and there. So written by Howard Chaykin and drawn by Gerald Perel. Now this one, it's kind of funny I did these ones together, but I was also pretty disappointed in the artwork for this one. It's very obviously oil paint or some kind of similar art style. I did not care for it at all. I thought it was really sloppy and choppy. I thought it was very like not like here's one right here I can show you where it's just like it almost blends together and it just looks really bad. I'm just not a fan, and the whole book is drawn that way. It's very rare when things look distinct, and the various characters we're introduced to, it's hard to distinguish them. So all the people that like all the like chairman and things like that, director of S.H.I.E.L.D., all those people, they all look the same to me. So I thought that actually hindered my enjoyment of the book. So I'm not going to show too much art from this one just because I don't think, especially if I try to show you on the camera, it's just going to look super, super blurry. So I'm just going to go mostly off my notes. But so we're introduced to him. He's, you know, the billionaire playboy philanthropist. He, I think in the first few first few pages, he gets on the plane to go out to a foreign country to like try and like personally pitch certain items that he's trying to sell. So right away, it's repulsor-based technology. So they're repulsor mines of some kind. So they're supposed to reflect certain things and be attracted to certain things. And that's going to come into play in a little bit. So a village he's visiting gets ransacked by local terrorists and things like that. And they kidnap Tony. And just like in the movie, Mr. Jensen is also in the cave, kidnapped by the terrorists, and they're forced to build some kind of weapon for the terrorist leader. Now, the point where this differentiates from the movie is the terrorist leader is actually the bad guy this time. It's not somebody at Stark Industries that had Tony kidnapped or whatever. So this this terrorist leader was somebody that Iron Man knew in college. And so it's not too much explored, but basically while Tony was a playboy, this guy was like, you know, he was on his life to do something, or he was like on the road to do something. He was very serious about school and whatnot, and didn't like, I don't know, you know, just not out there being crazy. At some point, he thought there was something wrong with society and ended up joining and ends up leading, of course, this terrorist organization. So, of course, just like the movie, instead of building the weapon that the terrorists asked him to make, Tony decides he's going to make a suit of armor. Now, this one is more fancy than the one in the movie, obviously, because of it's based on the repulsor technology. So the armor itself actually deflects bullets, but like as like a force field almost. So using that, Jensen is killed before Tony gets into the armor, and once he's in the armor, he just lays waste to the entire, like, you know, the whole cell of where the terrorists are, and he ends up escaping and taking refuge in the nearby village. At this time, the terrorist leader doesn't understand that Iron Man, or Tony is the Iron Man. He just thinks it's some random dude that showed up and trashed his cave, and somehow other terrorists come and, like, you know, scope out the scene, and they discover the terrorist leader alive, but he's like super, super banged up. He's burnt to a crisp. He kind of looks like Deadpool after his mutation. So what they do is they go through the cave and they find Tony's plans, and they chop off the remainder of what's left of the terrorist legs, and they replace them with cybernetics, and they make an armor, basically like a second skin for the guy, and he becomes the Ironmonger for all intents and purposes from the movie. So it's not some giant bulky suit. It's about the same size as Iron Man, where it's basically just like an outer layer or a shell for the terrorist guy, because he's barely alive. So Tony hides out in this nearby village until a point where terrorists, not the same ones, come and just kind of pillage the town or whatever, and he just goes nuts on them and just tears them apart and just wipes the floor with them. And he doesn't go back to the States until he's discovered by Rhodes. What's his name? Rhodes. I forget his first name, but that's going to bother me. What's his name? Basically, you know who I'm talking about. He plays War Machine in the movies. Rhodes, his best friend. He finds him, but he's not like a military member or anything like that. He is working for like Jim Rhodes? That's not James Rhodey. We're just gonna call him Rhodey. He finds him, but he's working for some kind of humanitarian effort. So he finds him and takes him back to the country, or he offers him a ride back to the country, but Iron Man instead ends up flying up onto an airplane, latching onto the belly and all the way to the United States, and then goes about his business. Now, in the States, Pepper Potts had been trying to deal with the CEOs and like leaders of the board and stuff like that, because the leaders of the board were basically working with the leader of Shield, and all that they were overpaying Shield and then just putting the excess money into their own pockets. You know, crooked politicians and CEOs and whatnot. Corporations bad. So Pepper's been trying to fight them, and so at a certain point they're just like, hey, we'll just kill Pepper. So they end up using future events to try and capitalize on that. But once Tony comes back, they're all like, well, crap, we can't do what we were going to do now. Because if Tony's back, he's not dead. They don't get full, like, I don't want to say custody, but control of the company. So once he gets back, at this point, the terrorists had started launching, like, targeting key areas in the United States and just causing havoc for the sake of just he can. And so if Tony sees this and he's like, hey, that's not cool. And he suits up and he tries to go fight him drunk. Ends up getting the crap beat out of him. And Tony blacks out. Doesn't even know how he gets back to Stark Industries and sheds the armor and gets like just in time to get discovered by Pepper, like drinking some more. And at this point, he's just like a sad, depressed dude. Pepper's hating on him, like, hey, I had all this faith in you and you just came back and you're just an alcoholic and you're basically useless. And so the terrorist starts attacking he puts 2 and 2 together at this point and realizes that Tony Stark is the Iron Man, and he starts attacking key areas to draw him out. So Tony's watching the news and he comes to a point where he's like, well, I have to do something. So he puts down the drink, suits up, and goes out to fight him. Along the way, he sees the board members capitalizing on the destruction of the area, and they try to run over Pepper. So Iron Man swoops down, scoops up Pepper, and flies her away to safety, and these board members get crushed by a building that was falling over. Kind of awesome, if you ask me. And he ends up fighting with this terrorist dude, and I can't remember exactly how he defeats him, but it's pretty dope. I thought it was pretty cool. I think he just beats him up, honestly. I think they just slug on each other until one of them dies. Oh, that's right. He uses the warehouse that the Shield was using to build the helicarriers, and he crushes them under one of the helicarriers because he takes out all the supports and he just crushes them. It's awesome. And so the Shield leader is the only one that survived out of those that were basically doing the corrupt stuff with the company. I know the oil paint's not great, but this is more for me. Basically gets him arrested because he's like, hey, I know you were being shady and you're done, game over. I have all the proof I need. And so, yeah, it's not looking good for that guy. And it's kind of like a little Easter egg. They say down here, Nick Fury would be the perfect special agent to replace you as head of S.H.I.E.L.D. So that's pretty cool. And at this point, I'm going to save that for later in a few seconds. But basically, Pepper and Rhodes are promoted to, like, what does he say? So I can find 2 executives that I can trust. I want you 2 to oversee the rebooting of the helicarrier project. So basically, these 2 are replacing the CEOs that got crushed by the building that were doing all the shady stuff. And then instead of ending the same way the movie does, this book ends with Tony Stark going to an Alcohol Anonymous meeting instead of announcing that he's Iron Man at a press conference. And to me, that just speaks volumes. Like, that's really, really cool. That is very good character development, because even while he was in that foreign country hiding out in a nearby village, he was still like drinking like whatever crazy, like the bartender or whatever of that village, whatever he was concocting, he was still getting drunk off that supply and all this craziness before he even got back to the country. So excellent character development. Absolutely loved it. Nothing against Iron Man or Robert Downey Jr., but I thought that was a better approach to like Tony coming to terms with the fact that he was profiteering off of killing innocent people dying and all this other stuff, instead of just being like sure, he can be an egomaniac, but I like that sense of accountability where he's like, I know I have a problem, so I need to go deal with it. Alcoholism is never something that Tony Stark in the MCU ever has a problem with, and I think part of that is due to the kind of like the MCU's demographic of like kids to like, you know, adults. Like, they're trying to appeal to the kid audience too, so they're not going to talk about something crazy like alcoholism, because I don't think anything that serious or that realistic has been really what do you call that, like a character flaw in the MCU. Like, you don't see, like, they're just not going to show like any kind of like heroes having drug addictions or anything like that, because that would send, like, you could say that could send a bad message to kids. So I don't know, it's just some pros and cons to being like a aiming at a younger demographic. But again, I really liked it. Just real quick, we'll go through my notes though to make sure I didn't miss anything. We already went over most of this. I covered most of it. Yeah, again, there's no Obadiah. He wasn't the one pulling the strings or anything. Jensen and Tony make the Iron Man armor. Hides in a village until Rhodes finds him, who flies for a humanitarian organization. Terrorist dude. Excuse me. Yeah, and then obviously the Iron Man book ends with Tony pledging to continue being a hero and fighting the good fight. Excuse me. Yep, that's going to do it. So again, just to reiterate, I liked both of these. I thought they were great stories. I thought they did an amazing job of developing characters in like the short time they had. And I'm really sad the more and more I read these books. I'm really sad the season 1 kind of brand died. That Marvel just abandoned it completely because they're actually pretty good. A lot of them are really, really good. I really enjoyed them. So that being said, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.